If there's one great thing we've seen a lot of in gaming recently, it's compilations of retro games. In my opinion, these compilations are a great way to collect classic games and to introduce new audiences to games they might not otherwise have easy access to. I'd like to spotlight a few in a new series that I'm going to call Cosmic Kompilations. In this flagship episode, we'll be taking a look at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga collection. At time of recording, this is the newest release from Digital Eclipse in collaboration with Konami, and collects every Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game from the arcade, NES, Super Nintendo, Mega Drive, and Game Boy. So, the way this works is that we'll be taking a look at a game compilation and scoring it based on how it fits these criteria. The games themselves, is it a good, expansive game list? Are they emulated well? Game enhancements and emulation features, are there any cool quality of life improvements and extra features that we didn't have access to in the original games? Museum content, the best part, concept art, interviews, cool behind-the-scenes bits, all that good stuff. Presentation and UI, how are the games presented to you? How does the compilation look and feel to navigate? And finally, value. Do you get enough quality content for the price that you'll be paying for this compilation? These will all be given a score out of 5, adding up to a total score of 25 at the end. So without further ado, let's begin. Starting with the game list, there are 13 games included in the Cowabunga collection, and they are as follows. You've got the original arcade game, the NES trilogy, all 3 Game Boy games, both the arcade and Super Nintendo versions of Turtles in Time, the Hyperstone Heist for Mega Drive, and the NES, Super Nintendo, and Mega Drive versions of Tournament Fighters. Whew, that's a lot of Turtles. Right off the bat, if you collect games in any capacity, you'll know that many of these games are absurdly rare and expensive to buy original copies of, so it's cool to be able to own these games officially without having to shell out. My amazing jokes aside, there's actually a great variety of genres here, so there should be something for everyone. That original arcade game is still as fun as it's ever been, and that infamous NES game is just as difficult as you've heard it is. If you're after a little recommendation, check out Radical Rescue, the 3rd game for the Game Boy. It's a Metroidvania, and surprisingly enough, it controls really well. All in all, it's a super comprehensive collection of this franchise's games, and should provide quite a few hours of retro gaming goodness. There's also online functionality for 3 of these games. Tournament Fighters even has rollback netcode, so you'll have a super smooth gameplay experience. I'm not much of an online gamer myself, but for those who are, that's really cool. You're even given the ability to pick between the US and Japanese versions of each game where applicable. One little detail I really like is how it changes the logo and art depending on the region you've selected. And as far as emulation quality goes, it's all pretty stellar here. There's nice integer scaling for the aspect ratio, and all of the games run just as well as they did on their original consoles, sometimes even better, but we'll get to that in a moment. All of the content from the original games is present and correct, except for one slight difference. The voice acting in the original arcade game has been re-recorded for this release. I guess they didn't have the license to use the original voice acting work, but it's all very faithful to how it originally sounds, and you'd honestly be hard-pressed to find any difference in gameplay. In collecting all of the games from this franchise in the era they've chosen, I really don't think there's much more they could have done to be more comprehensive here. I suppose you could make the argument that Konami's later Turtles games could have been included, but I think their omission is a conscious choice to keep this collection in that 90s nostalgia sweet spot. And also the PS2 games aren't very good, but don't tell anyone I said that. I think in terms of what they were going for, I'd be remiss to give the Cowabunga collection anything less than a 5 out of 5 for its games and emulation quality. Moving on to game enhancements, one of the coolest things here is that the games have individual enhancements that are toggleable on and off. This includes stuff like enhanced frame rates, disable flicker, and even some cool new stuff like adding useful icons to the map in Radical Rescue, making it the definitive way to play some of these games. You can also do things like turn on God mode, making you invincible. Beyond these, your usual compilation staples like rewind, save states, and button mapping are all present and correct. My only minor gripe is with the CRT filters. Now, I know this is a controversial subject, but I actually enjoy playing retro games with CRT filters on. I think it's a better way of seeing the pixel art in the way that it was originally intended to be viewed. I thought the TV filter in Digital Eclipse's Disney Classic Games collection was really excellent, but unfortunately I don't find the ones on offer in Cowabunga collection to be quite as impressive. They seem to be pretty subtle scanline overlays, and they just don't do much for me. That issue aside, the enhancements here are super cool, so I'm going to give them a 4 out of 5. Now we move on to what is honestly probably my favourite part of this collection, and that is the museum mode. There is an absolute treasure trove of archival content here from each game. There are high quality scans of all the box art and manuals for each game, as well as design documents, promotional material, and a full music player. You can also view some screenshots from each Turtles series and all the comic covers from each run. There's some really cool ones to check out, I wish we were able to read a few of the full comics, but I can understand why they might not have been able to do that. Another thing that I really like about this part is that there are captions which you can toggle that will tell you what you're looking at and translate any Japanese text, which is super useful for reading all of the behind the scenes stuff. As a side note, it's cool to see that all of the Nintendo branding on the cover art is present here. If you look at something like the Disney Afternoon collection, it's all kind of conspicuously edited out, but it's here for this release, no matter what console you're playing on. Kind of odd to see the Nintendo seal of quality in a PS4 game. What is edited out is a lot of the games that are featured on the promotional materials, which makes sense. Although it seems they didn't need to edit out the references to Konami's own non-licensed games, which is neat. You'll see references to Metal Gear, Rocket Knight Adventures, and Castlevania if you dig deep enough. But this is a tangent that I could just talk about forever, so let's get back to the subject at hand. Cowabunga Collection's museum content is fantastic and gets an easy 5 out of 5. As for the presentation, while the game selection screen does look very slick and there's some really nice art and animations there, I'm not a lover of the navigation method used. It's a carousel layout organised by console. You're never shown the full game list, and navigating the game menu can be a little disorienting, as slick as it looks. So it looks pretty, but the user experience could be a lot better in my opinion. This is probably my biggest problem with this collection. The UI and UX gets a 3 out of 5. As far as price goes, I don't think you could do much better than this. It's currently retailing for a little under £30 right now on all consoles, and I think that's an excellent price for the amount of games here and all of the extra content. This is a super lovingly put together package, and I think the value is really there for this collection, and I'm all for supporting releases like these. An easy 5 out of 5 for value. And with that, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Cowabunga Collection gets a very respectable 22 out of 25. Aside from some minor issues that are really more down to my personal preference than anything, make no mistake, this collection is absolutely fantastic and really is a gold standard for retro re-releases to come. What you have here is a perfectly presented piece of pop culture history, expertly presented and a great addition to any retro fans collection. Thank you for watching this. I hope you've enjoyed this new format I'm trying out. There are a bunch of these that I'd like to take a look at, some better, some worse, so do look forward to those. I can't wait to see what Digital Eclipse has done with Atari 50th anniversary. It comes out tomorrow at time of recording. From what I've seen, it looks like they'll be completely outdoing themselves yet again. Stay tuned for my thoughts on that. More to come soon, hopefully. See ya!